Dr. Monica Harris, a respected neurosurgeon, was wrongfully arrested after a routine stop at her store turned into a nightmare. Mistaken for a criminal, she faced unfair treatment by the police, who were stunned to learn her true identity. This story exposes the harsh realities of racial bias and the urgent need for change. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. On a bustling afternoon in downtown Atlanta, the city was alive with the usual symphony of urban activity. Dr. Monica Harris, a prominent and highly regarded African-American neurosurgeon, was finally concluding a grueling day. She had just completed a demanding 12-hour surgery at the hospital, a testament to her dedication and skill in the medical field. The day had drained her, and all she could think about was returning to the comfort of her home and the warmth of her family. But first, Monica needed to make a brief stop at a nearby convenience store to pick up a few essential items. Donned in her casual attire, simple jeans and a sweatshirt, a stark contrast to her professional scrubs, she pulled into the store's parking lot. The store was nestled in a neighborhood known for its mix of residential and commercial spaces, and as she entered, the lively atmosphere of the day enveloped her. Shoppers moved about, each immersed in their errands, creating a backdrop of mundane normalcy. As Monica walked through the store, her exhaustion was palpable, yet she was focused on her task. Her gaze swept over the shelves as she picked up the items she needed, her mind partially occupied with thoughts of relaxation and family time. Despite the ordinary nature of her errand, Monica sensed an uneasy feeling, a slight, inexplicable discomfort, as if someone was observing her more closely than usual. At first, she attributed this to the lingering fatigue from her long day, a natural byproduct of the intense hours spent in the operating room. However, Monica couldn't shake off the sensation. It was as though a pair of unseen eyes were fixed on her, an unsettling feeling that tugged at her subconscious. She glanced around, but no one seemed to be paying her any special attention. Perhaps it was just her imagination, or maybe the remnants of an old prejudice rearing its head. Whatever the case, she chose to brush off the discomfort and continued with her shopping, determined not to let it ruin her day. Outside the store, Officers Daniels and Mitchell were in their patrol cruiser, responding to a call they had received about a suspicious individual in the vicinity. The call had come from an employee at the store, likely the cashier, named Sarah, who had misinterpreted Monica's exhausted appearance as something more alarming. It's all too common for initial impressions to be clouded by unfounded assumptions. The reality is that many people often leap to conclusions based on superficial judgments, and this scenario was no exception. As the officers entered the store and approached Monica, they followed standard procedure, yet their demeanor was tinged with a sense of caution. Monica, still unaware of the brewing misunderstanding, remained calm and compliant. She was used to navigating uncomfortable situations with grace, a skill honed through years of professional and personal experiences. Her thoughts were on the mundane, simply finishing her errand and heading home. But then, everything shifted dramatically. As the officers conducted their routine checks, their initial professionalism gave way to a visible shock as they uncovered Monica's true identity. The realization that they had detained Dr. Monica Harris, a distinguished neurosurgeon with an esteemed reputation, hit them with a jolt. The contrast between their initial perceptions and the reality of who she was caused their faces to blanch with surprise. This moment was far more than an isolated incident. It underscored a broader narrative about the perils of snap judgments and the profound lessons we often learn when we take the time to understand the people around us. It highlighted how easy it is to misjudge someone based on fleeting impressions, and how the true essence of an individual can be obscured by our preconceived notions. In that split second of revelation, the officers faced an important truth: power and influence can exist in places where we least expect them, and our initial assumptions can often lead us astray. As they processed the gravity of the situation, the incident became a poignant reminder of the importance of empathy and the need to look beyond the surface before making judgments. As Monica made her way through the aisles of the store towards the cashier, the air seemed to crackle with an unsettling tension. The store, usually a mundane backdrop for her routine errands, felt different today. She couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in the pit of her stomach ever since she had entered. Sarah, the cashier, was scrutinizing her with an intensity that felt both intrusive and disconcerting. Monica's instincts told her that something was off, and she was eager to leave, not wanting to linger any longer than necessary. Just as Monica approached the counter, the store's entrance swung open, admitting two police officers, Daniels and Mitchell. They strode in with an authoritative air, their eyes sweeping the aisles with an almost predatory precision, as though they were on the lookout for someone specific. Monica's pulse quickened. Her mind raced with questions. What was happening? Why were the police here now, of all times? Monica tried to focus on the task at hand, paying for her groceries. However, the presence of the officers loomed large in her mind. Sarah, behind the counter, was visibly on edge, her gaze darting nervously towards the store entrance every few seconds. The tension in the store was palpable, and Monica's anxiety only grew. As Monica handed her money to Sarah, she couldn't ignore the two officers standing nearby, their hands resting on their holsters in a manner that seemed almost too deliberate. The sight made her heart race with a renewed urgency. What could this possibly be about? "Mom, we need to speak with you," Officer Daniels announced, his tone brooking no argument. Monica turned around, caught off guard. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts to remain composed. "We received a call about a suspicious person matching your description," Officer Mitchell said, his expression grave and unyielding. Monica felt a sinking feeling in her chest. Suspicious person. It was almost inconceivable. "I'm just here to buy some groceries," she protested. "I don't understand why you're questioning me." "Please step outside with us," Daniels commanded, his tone leaving no room for discussion. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Hesitantly, Monica left her groceries on the counter, her unease mounting with every step. As she exited the store, she noticed a small crowd beginning to gather, their whispers and glances directed toward her with a sense of collective curiosity. Monica's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Was this happening? As Monica attempted to explain that she was merely an exhausted doctor running a quick errand, her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The officer's attention was fixed elsewhere. "Do you have any identification?" Mitchell asked, his demeanor far from warm or welcoming. Monica nodded, reaching into her bag to retrieve her ID. But before she could fully extract it, Officer Daniels' grip tightened around her arm with a jarring roughness. "Don't move," he barked, his voice cutting through the air with an edge of authority that left Monica feeling both bewildered and increasingly apprehensive. Monica flinched under the harsh grip of the officer's hand. "I'm just getting my ID," she said, her voice strained as she fought to keep it steady despite her fraying nerves. The crowd outside was steadily growing, their gazes like invisible weight pressing down on her, heightening her already overwhelming stress. How had something as routine as retrieving her identification spiraled into such a monumental ordeal? The officers, Daniels and Mitchell, remained skeptical despite Monica's explanation. Their doubts led them to escalate the situation further. They fastened handcuffs around Monica's wrists, and she felt a sickening drop in her stomach as the cold, unforgiving metal clamped down. The stark reality of how drastically her day had shifted hit her hard. As they guided her toward the police cruiser, Monica was engulfed by a suffocating wave of anger, humiliation, and helplessness. How had it come to this? As they walked, Monica struggled to maintain her composure, but internally, she was in turmoil. Years of diligent work and earning respect in her profession seemed to crumble as she was treated like a criminal due to a gross misunderstanding. "Is this happening to me?" she wondered, incredulous at the absurdity of the situation. Outside, the crowd's gaze was relentless. Some people looked on with astonished faces, while others huddled in whispers of speculation. Monica could catch fragments of their conversations. What's happening here? And why are they arresting her? The scrutiny of the onlookers made her feel even more exposed and vulnerable, each whisper and glance adding to her sense of degradation. With frustration mounting, Monica directed her gaze toward the officers. "Can someone please explain what's going on?" she asked, her voice tight with restrained anger. The officers remained impassive, their expressions as unyielding as stone. They continued to the police cruiser, where Monica was carefully placed inside. From her vantage point, she could see the store employees, including Sarah, observing with varying degrees of discomfort and guilt. Monica wondered if they fully grasped the ramifications of their actions and how profoundly they had affected her life. As the cruiser made its way to the police station, Monica sat silently in the back, her mind racing through a whirlwind of worries. What would David, her husband, think when he discovered she hadn't returned home? David, who was a lawyer known for his calm and composed demeanor, would surely be frantic by now. And Jessica, her teenage daughter who admired her deeply, must be feeling an intense mixture of fear and confusion. The weight of her guilt was nearly unbearable. Had David already begun searching for her, frantically trying to uncover her whereabouts? Her thoughts drifted back to their last conversation, where she had promised Jessica she would be home in time for dinner. How could she possibly explain this chaotic turn of events to them? What had turned a simple errand into such a nightmarish ordeal? The question spun ceaselessly in her mind as the cruiser inched closer to the station, each one adding to the heavy burden she felt. How would she ever reconcile this harrowing experience when she finally managed to return home? When they arrived at the station, Monica was escorted into a small, grimy holding cell. The door, cold and heavy, clanged shut with an echoing thud behind her. The cell was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, casting long shadows across the concrete walls. Along one side of the room, a worn, uncomfortable bench stretched from wall to wall. Monica sat down slowly, trying to process the whirlwind of events that had led her here. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the distant sounds of bustling activity from elsewhere in the station. After what felt like an eternity of anxious waiting, the door creaked open with a rusty groan. A new officer stepped inside, a towering figure with a stern, unforgiving expression. Monica didn't recognize him. He was someone new, someone whose presence immediately felt menacing. Without uttering a single word, the officer approached her, his large frame looming over her like a dark cloud. "Stand up," he commanded abruptly, his voice sharp and authoritative. Monica's heart skipped a beat. The abruptness of the order, combined with the officer's imposing demeanor, left her momentarily stunned. She hesitated, trying to grasp the reason behind his sudden demand. "I said, stand up," he repeated, his voice rising in volume, each word laced with irritation and impatience. Slowly, Monica pushed herself to her feet, her pulse quickening with anxiety. The officer grabbed her arm with a rough grip, his fingers pressing down with an almost painful force. He yanked her towards the center of the cell with a brusque, almost hostile motion. "What's this about?" Monica asked, her voice trembling despite her effort to keep it steady. Her question was met with silence. The officer did not answer. Instead, he shoved her forcefully against the cold wall of the cell, pressing down hard on her shoulder with a grim determination. "Just checking for any contraband," he said, his tone dripping with mockery and disdain. The way he said it made it clear that he saw her as nothing more than a criminal, as if her entire identity was overshadowed by his prejudiced view of her. Monica felt a surge of humiliation and fear as the officer began to pat her down with excessive force. His hands roamed over her body with an unsettling lack of respect, lingering far longer than necessary. This wasn't about ensuring safety, it was about asserting dominance, about reducing her to nothing more than a suspect in his eyes. She bit her lip, determined not to let him see the tears she was desperately trying to hold back, not wanting to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Finally, after what seemed like an interminable period, the officer stepped back. "You're clear," he said dismissively, as if she had ever been a genuine threat. Without another word, he left the cell, the door slamming shut behind him with a finality that reverberated through the room. Monica slumped back onto the bench, feeling the weight of the encounter settle heavily upon her. She tried to collect her thoughts, but the incident had left her shaken, the fear and anger mingling in a heavy knot in her chest. The harsh reality of the prejudice she faced, even in this vulnerable state, was painfully apparent. As Monica sat in the holding cell, her frustration and anxiety grew with each passing minute. From her vantage point, she could overhear the officers outside discussing her situation. Their conversation was rife with condescension and racial bias. "I don't care who she is, she's just another black person who thinks they can get away with anything," Daniel scoffed disdainfully. "Yeah, it's like they expect special treatment just because of their skin color. They think they're untouchable," Mitchell added with a smug smirk. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Their conversation made it agonizingly clear that Monica was being unfairly targeted and dehumanized based on her race. The officer's blatant disregard for her humanity was chilling. The situation took an even more disturbing turn when Mitchell made a decision that only further underscored their disregard for Monica's dignity. He walked over to the cell and, with a dismissive sneer, threw her phone onto the floor in front of her. "You don't need this," he said, his tone making it clear that he believed she was unworthy of even basic rights. Monica, already feeling profoundly dehumanized by the officer's earlier treatment, was struck by the officer's blatant disrespect. The way he discarded her phone, an essential link to the outside world, felt like another way to assert his power and underscore the dehumanizing nature of her situation. Despite Dr. Monica Harris's high-profile status and the clear credentials she presented, The officer's deep-seated biases prevented them from extending the respect and fairness she was rightfully owed. As Monica sat in the holding cell, her mind raced as she awaited the resolution of this bewildering ordeal. The weight of the situation pressed heavily upon her, and she could see the officers outside her cell glancing at her ID with growing unease. The shift in their demeanor was palpable. "She's a neurosurgeon," Mitchell whispered to Daniels, his voice tinged with a mix of shock and disbelief. A highly respected one at that. The realization of her true identity seemed to unsettle them deeply. But the damage of their initial actions had already been done. They were visibly shaken, struggling to reconcile their actions with the newly revealed truth. Despite their evident discomfort, they continued to treat Monica with a mixture of suspicion and reluctance. "We can't just let her go," Mitchell said, his voice reflecting a strange combination of reluctance and disbelief. What if this is a trick? His words, though seemingly procedural, carried an undertone of mistrust rooted in their preconceived biases. The tension escalated further when Monica, in a bid to clarify her situation and seek legal assistance, requested to use her mobile phone. Her request was met with a flat refusal. The officers insisted she had to remain isolated until further instructions came. Their refusal was not based on any procedural necessity, but seemed to be driven by an underlying prejudice. Monica overheard Daniels muttering to Mitchell, "She's probably trying to find a way to manipulate us or something. We should keep her in here until we're completely sure." As Monica's frustration mounted, the situation took a disturbing turn. Another officer, responding to the initial report, began making derogatory remarks about Monica's appearance and her presence in the area. His comments, laden with racial and socioeconomic assumptions, were made loud enough for Monica to hear. "Why would someone like her be out in this area at this hour? She's probably got something to hide," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. These remarks were not only deeply hurtful, but also starkly revealed the pervasive racism influencing the officer's behavior. Monica, a highly respected professional, was being reduced to a mere suspect based solely on her race and socioeconomic background. The officer's comments and actions only served to reinforce the prejudices driving their decision-making. Monica felt increasingly dehumanized, her frustration growing as she observed their behavior through the small window of her holding cell. The denial of basic communication facilities exacerbated her sense of helplessness. The overtly racist comments and actions intensified her distress, transforming what should have been a routine clearance into a profound violation of her dignity. The situation deteriorated further when one of the officers, a tall man with a harsh demeanor, began mocking Monica's professional credentials. As he walked past the cell, he deliberately made his voice loud enough for Monica to hear. "Why are we even letting her talk to her lawyer? She's probably used to getting special treatment because of her job," he sneered, his tone laden with scorn. The officer's remarks were a direct challenge to Monica's identity and accomplishments, revealing an insidious disbelief that a black woman could hold such a distinguished position. This incident, marked by blatant racism and profound disrespect, highlighted a disturbing reality. The pervasive nature of bias can obscure even the most evident truths and lead to the unjust treatment of individuals based on their race and appearance. Monica's experience in the holding cell became a stark reminder of the work still needed to confront and dismantle deeply ingrained prejudices in our society. The racial bias became glaringly evident when another officer, who had been lingering in the background, decided to take matters into his own hands. He approached Monica and, without a hint of courtesy, began rummaging through her cell phone. Leaning in close, he sneered, "You know, people like you always try to play the victim. Let's see how you like being on the other side of the bars for a change." His words were more than just a violation of Monica's rights. They were a raw display of the racial prejudices that underpinned their actions. The officer's disdain was palpable, and their refusal to grant Monica basic rights, such as using her phone or contacting her lawyer, underscored their disregard for her dignity and the respect she deserved, irrespective of her profession and status. After what seemed like an interminable period, Captain Reynolds, a seasoned officer known for his straightforward approach, arrived at the station. His commanding presence and stern demeanor made it clear that he was a man who had witnessed and dealt with numerous incidents. Upon reviewing Monica's file, he immediately took decisive action. "This is a serious mistake," Reynolds said, his frustration evident in his tone. "Dr. Harris, I deeply apologize for this. You should never have been treated this way." Monica, still reeling from the ordeal, watched as Reynolds intervened. Her heart raced with a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. Could it be resolved so swiftly? As Reynolds spoke, Monica felt a surge of gratitude, tempered by the bewilderment of why it had taken so long for someone to recognize the error. The impact of the incident weighed heavily on her mind. How frequently did such mistakes occur? And how many individuals had been unjustly treated like she had? When Monica was finally released from the cell, she felt the sting of the handcuffs on her wrists and took a deep breath, trying to steady the tumult of emotions within her. As she made her way toward the exit, she cast one last look at the officers who had mishandled her situation. Her expression was a mixture of disappointment and indignation. Turning to face them, she said, her voice firm despite the simmering anger, "I hope you understand the gravity of what you've done. This isn't just about me. It's about the systemic racism that people of color face every day." She let her words linger in the air, hoping they would resonate and prompt reflection on the pervasive issue of racial injustice. If you are still watching this video and find these stories useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Captain Reynolds met Monica's gaze with a somber yet earnest expression. "You're right, Dr. Harris. We will be conducting a thorough investigation into this incident." His tone was sincere, and Monica could see a genuine concern in his eyes. This moment of acknowledgement from a higher authority felt like a small victory amidst the overwhelming distress of her experience. What had started as a routine stop at the store had escalated into a harrowing encounter, exposing deep-seated racial biases within law enforcement. Despite her esteemed position as a respected neurosurgeon, Monica was subjected to unwarranted suspicion and wrongful detention by officers Daniels and Mitchell. Their behavior, marked by a lack of acknowledgement of their errors, only underscored the racial prejudices at play. Monica's treatment was a stark reminder of the systemic issues that permeate even seemingly routine interactions with the police. Returning home, Monica found a refuge of support in her family. David, her husband, who was usually composed and strategic in his approach to challenges, immediately recognized the gravity of their situation. He saw an opportunity not just for personal redress, but for broader societal impact. They engaged in deep discussions, weighing their options and deciding that pursuing legal action was a necessary step. But they also realized that raising awareness about racial discrimination was equally crucial. David took the initiative to reach out to local media outlets, knowing that publicizing Monica's story could spark important conversations and drive change. As the media coverage began to unfold, Monica's story quickly garnered attention. The headlines captured the essence of her ordeal, drawing public scrutiny and support. The attention was overwhelming but also empowering, as it validated her experience and amplified her voice. Monica agreed to share her story with raw honesty and openness. She spoke about the everyday prejudice and racial profiling that many people of color face, using her own experience as a powerful illustration. Her narrative resonated deeply with a broad audience, leading to an outpouring of support from her community, colleagues, and even strangers who had encountered similar injustices. The response was a testament to the collective empathy and solidarity that could be mustered in the face of racial discrimination. This support bolstered Monica's resolve to continue her advocacy for racial justice. Her journey from victim to advocate not only highlighted the personal impact of racial bias, but also illustrated the broader societal issues that need to be addressed. Monica's story became a symbol of the fight against systemic prejudice, serving as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, one person's courage can spark significant change and inspire others to stand up against injustice. Her experience underscores the critical importance of acknowledging and confronting the biases that exist within our society and institutions. Monica's transition from a distressing encounter to a platform for advocacy exemplifies how personal challenges can lead to powerful movements for change, inspiring others to join in the fight for justice and equality. As we wrap up today's video, we've delved into a powerful story of racial bias and systemic injustice that affects many individuals every day. Monica Harris's experience serves as a stark reminder of how easily we can judge others based on appearances and how important it is to challenge these biases when we encounter them. What have you learned from Monica's story? How has it impacted your understanding of racial bias and the importance of treating everyone with respect and fairness? Please share one thing you've learned and how you plan to incorporate it into your life by leaving a comment below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content that sheds light on important issues and encourages meaningful conversations. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts.